Hello and welcome. We're going to be talking about potatoes and Jack's the cards. No, I'm kidding. We're going to be talking about Jack's potato, but you'll see what I mean in just a moment. I'm going to play the debate clip right now, and you'll hear the audio.
Tom Brokaw, a question for Senator Quayle.
Well, I don't mean to beat this drum until it has no more sound left in it, but to follow up on Brett Hume's question, when you said that it was a hypothetical situation, it is, sir, after all, the reason that we're here tonight, because you are running not just for vice president. And if you cite the experience that you had in Congress, sure.
So I know that there was a lot of clapping and it was a little hard to hear that last part. So first of all, I think these moderators in this 1988 vice presidential debate did a great job with the way they did the debate. Their questions were very poignant, and they made sure to ask follow-up questions and to really press the candidates and to try to get substantive answers out of the candidates. They weren't just softball questions. They weren't just weird, random, useless questions based on platitudes. Unfortunately, those weird, random, platitude-based questions are the ones that we see these days. They're the common types of questions, which is unfortunate, but going back on topic here, the moderators are asking Senator Quayle, at the time he was Senator Quayle, they're asking Senator Quayle of Indiana, would he do or would he be ready to be president if that event were to ever occur? And so we can already see that Senator Quayle is trying to sort of weasel his way out of the question because he doesn't know exactly how to answer it. And he's uncomfortable with it, so maybe he should have come more prepared with the response for that question, just saying. But the important point that they make right when the audience starts clapping is that when someone is running for vice president, they're running based on the possibility that they might have to become president. So if something happens to the president, the vice president has to step in and become the new president. So all vice presidential candidates should be running with that in mind. And clearly, the moderators wanted to press Quayle on that, and he wasn't prepared, as I've been saying. So let's go on.
You must have some plan in mind about what you would do if it fell to you to become president of the United States, as it has to so many of them.
So you must have some plan if it fell to you to become president of the United States. So yeah, you must have some plan, and you know what they be. My plan is some. So I think in this case they mean like, will you be ready? How will you be ready? What will you do? So they want substantive policy answers. They want to know how he's going to handle foreign policy, or how he's going to handle domestic policy, or taxes, or regulations, or whatever the case is, because there's a lot of things the president has to handle. So they're asking for a substantive policy answer, but he's not going to give one. He's just going to be like, oh, well, this and that. And you see, well, yeah, so, but let's go on.
Vice presidents just in the last 25 years or so. If it fell to you to become president of the United States, as it has to so many vice presidents just in the last 25 years or so.
As it has to so many vice presidents just in the last 25 years or so. So this was in 1988. So 25 years before 1988 would have been 1963. And of course, in 1963, President Kennedy passed away suddenly. And of course, so Vice President Johnson had to become the new president. So Lyndon Johnson, who was vice president, became president upon the death of John Kennedy, who was the president when he died. And of course, Richard Nixon, President Nixon, resigned, and so Vice President Ford, Gerald Ford, became the new president obviously. And of course, there's the whole situation, and by the way, you can go take a look at my other video titled Spiro Leslie Gerald, and I go in detail on that topic. But obviously, Richard Nixon's original vice president was Spiro Agnew, but Agnew had a scandal, lots of tax evasion, criminal conspiracy, fraud, some stuff going on, so he had to resign. And Nixon replaced Agnew with Ford, who was actually the House of Representatives Republican minority leader at the time. He was a congressman from Michigan. So Nixon appointed Ford to the vice presidency. And of course, Nixon resigned later, and then so Ford became president. So that was 1974, and the Kennedy Johnson thing was 1963. So obviously, just in the last 25 years or so, when they say that in this debate, they mean just as it has in the case of Kennedy and Johnson and Nixon and Ford. So, what if you, Senator Quayle, had to be in that position? That's what they're talking about.
Let me try to answer the question one more time. I think this is the fourth time that I've had this question. And I think that 3 times I've had this question.
This is funny because clearly Quayle is like, oh, well, you're asking me this question so many times, and I know I'm not answering it, but like, oh, come on, like, why are you repeating the question? I'm getting so flustered. Oh, look at me. I'm so nervous because I don't know how to answer the question, but I'm just going to pretend to be angry and come off as like tough. Yeah, so that's what Quayle is doing at the moment, but the point is, but the other funny thing is, when Quayle says, this is the 4th time I've been asked this question, the moderator's like, 3rd time. So that it's funny how they correct him on a technicality like that. It's actually very funny.
And I'll try to answer it again for you as clearly as I can.
And he doesn't really answer the question. He just gives a bunch of words.
Because the question you're asking is, what kind of qualifications does Gan Quayle have to be president? What kind of qualifications do I have, and what would I do?
Well, actually, they're more asking of how would you be ready, would you be ready, that kind of stuff. And obviously, qualifications do depend on that. But I mean, that does depend on qualifications, but just answer the question and don't try to drag through it.
This kind of a situation. And what would I do in this situation? I would make sure people in the cabinet, people and advisors to the president called in, I'll talk to them, and I'll work with them. And I will know them on a first-hand basis. Because as vice president, I'll sit on the National Security Council. And I'll know them on a first-hand basis because I'm going to be coordinating the drug effort. I'll know them on a first-hand.
Okay, this response is sort of weird because obviously you're going to be vice president. Like if you, he did win the election. They did win the election, obviously, Bush and Quayle. So, but yeah, like, okay, you would know the cabinet because you're vice president and you would know them on a first-hand basis and a first-name basis. Like, of course, like, okay, so, like, you're just saying obvious stuff. And it's like saying, well, I'm going to be, working with these people, and so they're going to know my name, and I'm going to know their name. Yeah, that's obvious, so. Okay. Like, clearly Quayle doesn't know what he's saying at this moment.
Because Vice President George Bush is going to recreate the Space Council, and I'll be in charge of that. I will have day-to-day activities with all the people in government. And then, if that unfortunate situation happens, which would be very tragic, happens,
and then if that unfortunate situation happens, and then if that, like, okay, you're just repeating yourself now, saying the same thing, situation, tragic, which would be tragic. Like, don't play word jumbles and garbage.
Carry out responsibilities of the presidency of the United States of America. And I will be prepared to do that. I will be prepared not only because of my service in the Congress, but because of my ability to communicate, to lead.
It is not just age.
So your ability to communicate lead, like what does that mean? Like what do you mean by that? So your ability to communicate, okay, well, and your ability to lead. So explain substantively what you mean by that. List your experience or like what policies you would have. Like be specific. Don't just say my ability to communicate and lead.
Only because of my service in the Congress, because of my ability to communicate, to lead. It is not just age, it's accomplishments.
It is not just age, it's accomplishments. So okay, yeah, Quayle was 41 at the time because he was born 1947. This is 1988, so he was 41, so that's considered young. Okay, but yeah, like no one. Okay, like go on, Quayle.
It's experience.
It's experience.
I have far more experience than many others that sought the office of Vice President of this country. I have as much experience in the Congress as Jack Kennedy did when he sought presidency. I will be prepared.
Okay, well, you're saying you have experience, more experience, as much experience. Okay. Well, what is that experience? Can you tell us what that experience is? Because you're just saying the word experience, so we get that you know the word experience, but can you tell us what experience you're talking about? And the look that Lloyd Benson gives Quayle is very funny. But okay, I get why he compared himself to Kennedy because like Kennedy was 43 when he was elected president, and so he was a young guy running for president, and they thought that he was an inexperienced senator. So I get, and obviously Dan Quayle at the time is a senator, so I get why they're saying that, like why he's making the comparison, but like it's still random to make such a comparison, and it's still just a outlandish comparison, especially when the difference is Quayle is on the vice presidential side of the ticket and he hasn't really given a clear answer on anything. All he needs to do is say, I would do this, this, and that if I had to become president, or something, something, something. He needs to give clear answers, and the point is he just tries to deflect, and then eventually he just brings in this comparison. He just compares himself to Kennedy and says, oh, well, so and so. Well, first of all, you might want to establish your own image and not try to depend on a comparison to someone else. Yeah, it's just, he's not answering the question.
To deal with the people, the Bush administration, that unfortunate event would never occur.
Senator Benson?
Senator, I served with Jack Kennedy. I knew Jack Kennedy. Jack Kennedy was a friend of mine. Senator, you're no Jack Kennedy.
Okay, so first of all, I love how drawn out and long that remark is. I knew Jack Kennedy. I served with Jack Kennedy. Jack Kennedy was a friend of mine. Senator, you're no Jack Kennedy. Bam! Like, wow, that's he drew it out so that he could make the zinger really zing and really stick it to him. It's just hilarious.
In a situation like that.
So another thing to note is they're all clapping, but Lloyd Benson stays in character and he stays focused, and he's like, what has to be done in a situation like that? So he gets right back on topic and goes right to answering the question.
Situation like is to call in the joint.
Your own candidate.
That was really uncalled for, Senator.
In a situation like that, in a situation like that,
You're only taking time.
is to call in the joint.
Your own candidate.
That was really uncalled for, Senator.
You're the one that was making the comparison, Senator.
First of all, the funny thing here is that is the look on Dan Quayle's face. It's hilarious. Like, oh, how dare you? You offended me. Oh. And then he's like, that was really uncalled for, Senator. Well, okay. Well, first of all, when you get a remark like that, the best thing you can do is just smile and move on, or not respond, or respond with something smarter, which clearly Quayle didn't have to say. That, like, he didn't have a smarter remark to make, so he could have just moved on, or just because Benson was going to move on, so Quayle could have just moved on with him, or he could have been like, well, thank you, and just laughed or said, you're no Kennedy either, or whatever the case, like sounding really victimized and offended, and being like, that was really uncalled for, is like, how dare you, decorum, sir, please. Ugh. Like, come on. Like, just get over it. Dan. And the second thing is, Benson's like, well, you were the one making the comparison, Senator. And I like the way he said Senator. Like, it sounded really condescending. It was like looking down on Quayle. It's hilarious. But the point is, yeah, but that point exactly, like, Quayle was the one who made the comparison, so we should have known that words could have consequences, and anyone can use your words against you. So that's my point. So that was my rundown of that moment in the debate. It was quite an interesting debate. I remember seeing it a while ago.